Ready to go? Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm State Senator Tony Hwang, representing all of Newtown and Sandy Hook. I have with me my fellow state delegation colleagues, Representative Mitch Bolinsky, as well as Representative Marty Foncello. Thank you all for being here today. I want to share with you briefly the agenda, how we'll approach it. Each one of us will take a few minutes, hopefully not too long, in describing our work, our committees, and some of the legislative priorities that we anticipate coming forth in this legislative session. But the most important part is, after we present that, is we welcome the feedback from speakers that will come up asking us any array of questions, and it is critical. The reason we're doing this pre-session is the legislative session begins on February 7th and ends on May 8th. It's a short stretch, but at this moment in time, we are in the process of working on bills for submission and review. Our hope is to hear from you some of your points of concerns and issues that we can raise as your delegation up in Hartford. And before we get started, I also want to acknowledge some of our town officials that are here. Particularly two that I see right away, First Selectman Capisi and Selectwoman Ms. Koo, as well as other officials that if I start trying, I will probably not get everybody. So please know that we're appreciative of you being here. So I'll be quick in my introduction. I am State Senator for all of Newtown and Sandy Hook, and for me, I sum up my priorities moving forward as understanding affordability in the state of Connecticut and for many of the residents in this state and town. Now, affordability means different things to different people, and I understand that. But I think for us, as legislators, we need to understand that we have to create a better way in how we move forward in creating a more sustainable and affordable Connecticut. Look, we should all pat ourselves on the back that we passed out a $600 million tax cut in the last biennial budget, but I felt that we could have gone further. I felt that we could have made a better way to change how we govern and create a more sustainable and affordable Connecticut. Three particular areas that I want to focus in on is the fact that we need to really hone in on accountability, transparency, and respect for the consumer of our utilities. They have a guarantee monopoly, and we've seen staggering rate increases with declining customer service, in my opinion. And they're the only game in town. And the frustration that we had is the fact that there is truly a lack of respect and transparency and accountability to the consumers that they've been given an incredible privilege to serve. So one of the things that we did do this year was that our utility companies can lobby government, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to lobby and make influence, impact, and they pass that cost back onto the consumer.
Right.
We stopped that this year.
Yep.
I think there are other major issues looking at utilities, grading down transparency, but another area is the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. They have the true oversight beyond the legislative action that we can undertake. So for me, looking at utilities, looking to reduce energy costs, but create more transparency is critical. Along the same vein of that is healthcare costs. Healthcare insurance is a critical element for those that want to protect their loved ones, protect themselves. But it's important to understand healthcare is such a complicated matter, and the costs are staggering. And for most of us that are employed working at Sikorsky or Bullringer, most people don't understand you work in a self-employed marketplace. What that means is, even though you get a bill from Anthem or Aetna when you work at those companies negotiate and set the rates. You may see slight increases in your copay and your prescription drug costs, but it's not even close to the amount of cost that's absorbed by your hiring company. We also, and that counts for almost 75% of the marketplace. So that marketplace is pretty well maintained. It still has cost increases, but it's not a significant cost increase. What we're looking at cost increases that are staggering and astronomical is the fully insured marketplaces. So if you are an individual insurer or you are a small business or an independent contractor, you have witnessed and unfortunately experienced double-digit healthcare cost almost every single year. And it has become so unaffordable. It has almost become, in terms of some of the people that we talk to and businesses, healthcare cost under the fully insured plan for small and individual businesses has virtually become catastrophic preventive care. You're not able to see the doctors you want. You're not able to get the preventive care that you need. So healthcare needs to be better understood in the cost containment. And I can assure you, insurance companies are on nobody's holiday list. So for me, tackling healthcare cost, lowering cost, not only for small businesses, as I mentioned, but also for our seniors. Medicare has a marketplace, is an important role in providing health care to our seniors. But that marketplace has been supplemented by the ABCDs of plans, and they're insufficient. And we're talking about Medicaid as being an artificially maintained marketplace. So when you look at healthcare as a whole, for me as the ranking member on insurance and formerly on public health, it is something that is critical to maintaining the affordability and the sustainability of people living in our state and staying in our state. The two other areas that I want to focus in on is in regards to education. Education not only on our pre-K and support and our K to 12, but also our vocational higher education programs. Not always necessarily focusing on 2 years and 4 year colleges and graduate programs, but on technical skills, coding, all array of areas. I served on the Governor's Workforce Council, and there are tremendous needs in Connecticut businesses, and they are thriving. But the problem is they can't grow or compete at a clip without the workforce talent. So workforce development means jobs, means opportunity, but it also focuses and ties in very closely to education, and that's important. Putting more money into education does not always equate to the highest level of education. I hope that we create an environment, and me, and Mitch has been a tremendous advocate as an education committee member, is to create an environment for me. The focus in education is create the best environment to foster a lifelong passion to learn and to embrace the opportunity to learn and develop skills that are relevant and transferable. The other part for me is from a standpoint of my ranking role in transportation. It is to look at transportation infrastructure, but also transportation safety in regards to cars, bikes, pedestrian walkways, sidewalks, and roadway kind of strategy to prevent preventable tragedies, unfortunately, that we've seen. From 2021 to 2022, we actually had a 500% increase in wrong-way fatalities. Just this past Sunday, we had a driver from Arizona drive on the wrong way in I-95 in Branford. She was unfortunately, tragically killed in that wrong-way driving. Nearly 95% of all wrong-way driving fatalities are a result of impaired driving, whether it be alcohol or, unfortunately for us as a legislative body, by the majority, the passage of legalization of marijuana. We have to be extremely sensitive in regards to some of the processes and regulations related to impaired driving and respect for yourself and your family's safety, but also the safety of others on the road. So that's something that's been really important for me, because wrong roadway tragedies caused by impairment or distracted driving or incidents that's beyond your own control is something that we can prevent. And ultimately, as I kind of was working on this and had a conversation with Governor Lamont, I think I agree with him. We can supplement all the laws we make, but in regards to some of these areas, there is no substitute for common sense. There's truly no substitute for the respect of your own safety and the loved ones that care deeply for you, but also the respect for others on the road. So I can bring up a whole bunch of things, but the biggest part of all of what we do is to be your voice and representative up in Hartford. I can assure you, we're not always going to agree on everything. But then I was taught by my coach early on, if you got someone who agrees with you on everything, then they truly don't believe in anything. So for me, I try to do my best and represent these kind of opportunities here from all of you, working closely with our colleagues and working in a bipartisan manner to get things done and create solutions for the people that we represent is my first priority. So thank you for listening to me and some of my legislative priorities, and I'm going to defer to the other senior legislator who represent all of Newtown, Representative Bolinsky.
Thank you, Senator. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so happy to have a full room. It seems like we haven't done this since before the dreaded pandemic. So this is liberating to my soul. I'm State Representative Mitch. I'm in my sixth term, the second half of my sixth term, and I'm a pretty simple guy. When it comes to what's going on and what's needed in our state, I like to come at it from the perspective of what's needed in Newtown, and that's where it starts. So, when you listen to somebody who's such an incredible policy expert as Tony here, talk about transportation and talk about the insurance markets, I sit in awe of his level of knowledge. I work from a different perspective because I lack his level of knowledge and expertise. What I am interested in most is understanding how you feel about these issues and what you think we should do to attack them. And from that perspective, I've become a very incredibly fruitful advocate and bipartisan presence in that legislature. So when it comes to passing legislation, when it comes to moving initiatives, there's very few people that actually have the record that I have. And that's a conversation for another day, and you don't want to hear it right now because it's going to be way long. So, but the perspective that I like to bring to this is, for a forum like this, it's our job to be here to listen to you. Yes, we can outline what the legislature is going to look at as its priorities. Not all of it is something that we or I would agree with, so we steer gently. We use relationships that we have within the legislature and we use relationships we have within the governor's office, because this governor is very different than the gentleman that preceded him, who was very good to Newtown, but Governor Lamont is a very approachable man. Is a man you can have a relationship with and whom you can be honest with. So I appreciate him because I have access to him, and that is an honor and a privilege. But I serve 3 committees. I'll start with the smallest one. I am the ranking member on the Aging Committee, the Republican leader on the Aging Committee. And we have been working feverishly for the better part of a decade on aging in place initiatives because we believe that people belong at home, not in a nursing home or an institution unless that is their choice. So while we work on making sure that those facilities are accountable and as good as they can be, our ultimate goal is to give everybody the opportunity to age in place with their family, with their community, and with the absolute maximum amount of dignity such an incredible rush in what we accomplished in that committee, because that committee does not stand on political whim. The leadership of that committee works completely and totally together in support of one another, and we passed groundbreaking, comprehensive aging in place and industry accountability, including state hired ombudsmen to visit facilities and visit homes to make sure that things are being executed in the safest, most gentle, humane, and loving ways possible. With that legislation, the leadership of that committee, we were awarded Legislators of the Year because of that bipartisan work, and we thought that was great. But last week I found out that was nothing compared to where we're going this year, because the governor's office and the leadership of the legislature took notice of what we accomplished and what it meant. So this year we start the session with something called a governor's bill and something called a speaker's bill. HB 5001, we already know the bill number, and it has not been put in yet. The speaker's first number. And with that, we get to carry on and complete more of our aging and aging in place initiatives so that people can have wonderful lives and be happy and with people that they love instead of being in nursing homes or in places that tend not to be the most cohesive places in the world to live in dignity. So we have that blank slate on two sides of the equation there, and it's such an incredible opportunity to be one of the individuals who can work on that. So it's a very, very lucky time for us in the Aging Committee and for the people of Connecticut, and we're going to set examples for the country. So pardon me for that.
That's great news. That's great news.
It's
That's literally hot off the press.
right, and what it does for my heart is remarkable. So the next committee that I serve is also near and dear to me. I've been an 11-year member of the Education Committee. Okay. Education means a million things to a million people. Having the fundamentals in place, being responsive to our communities, our families, not just our children, but to our parents, and having enough options built in where somebody can make determinations along with their family about where they want to go in life, and then giving them the tools to use it. That's the crux of what Senator Hwang was talking about. All right, you give people the tools to do what they want to do, to love what they do, to grow into what they do, and to love their lives. At the same time, they're making an income that's allowing them to live a life that is the American dream. So that's the goal of the Education Committee. Some of the things that we're working on the granular level, we're very concerned with the learning loss that happened with the pandemic. We're not catching up. So we need to focus our efforts. We also need to focus on mental health, because the pandemic also created a society full of children that missed a piece of their childhood. We can't give it back to them, but we need to figure out a way to have them move beyond it and just get on with learning without us confusing them with other issues. So fundamentals STEM tools. Workforce is a big issue in education as well. Retaining teachers, recruiting teachers, it's a very tough thing. A lot of reasons for it. Okay. We work, in concert with the Governor's Commission and with other committees to be sure that what we're doing is providing choices and providing assets that people can be excited about. Because when I'm going to sound like my father here, I apologize. When I was young, we used to love going to school. We used to walk to school. It was, uphill both ways in the snow, the whole thing like that. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't have worry in the world when we were in the school building. It was fun. We learned. We didn't know that we were being filled with our future. And we need to get back to that. So there is no magic formula to it, but the longer we work at it, the more likely we are to stumble into the absolute best formula, so we keep going. We also have to make our teachers happier again, because we've, in many ways, we've mandated so much stuff and put so much on a teacher's plate that they don't spend the majority of their energy in applying it to their students anymore. They're doing mandated reporting and all kinds of things that we make them do. Okay. Want to solve that workforce problem? Let's make teachers really happy. So there's simple stuff that goes to all of this. And most of this I've learned from you. And then the biggest of my committees is appropriations. I won't say very much about appropriations, except that we're constitutionally required to balance our budget. We're coming off of a period of time when we were riding incredibly large surpluses at the state level. We also had tons of, and I'm talking billions of dollars, of federal ARPA relief money, which is now gone. So we're looking to have a sustainable position in our budget where we take care of those in the state that are most vulnerable, but allow everybody else to function in a way where the state doesn't get in the way. And that's my way of looking at it, as opposed to telling people what we're going to spend money on and then hoping that they can fit into what we've chosen as boxes. Then I'll conclude with one thought. During Tony's conversation about insurance, he was talking about all of the things that happen that you pay for in your health insurance. The negotiation that happens between companies and your employers. At the state capitol, most of you don't know this or really don't pay attention to it if you do. The insurance companies are represented by lobbyists. They also have a caucus of legislators that do everything that they ask for support in return. The only people up there that represent you are people like me, and Tony, and Marty, and potentially 180 other people that should be engaged with their communities. So on that note, I've spoken way too long. I'm looking forward to the Q&A, and I'm going to turn this over to my friend, Marty Foncello.
Thanks, Mitch. I just want to do a quick presentation. Marty is covering the northwest part of Newtown. He also represents Brookfield and Bethel. He was the former first selectman of Brookfield. And post 9/11, Marty, using his law enforcement experience, worked on behalf of Federal Homeland Security. Right. So he comes to us with tremendous background, And I just really wanted to welcome him to the team. He's been a great asset. And you've got one session under your belt, so
Right.
please share with
Yep.
us what you want to do. Welcome.
Thank you. That concludes my briefing here today.
You might be very well liked
That's
for that
right.
after we both talk.
I'll be real brief. So Marty Foncello, 107th District. That's all of Brookfield, again, the northern Hawleyville section of Newtown, and the Stony Hill portion of Bethel. Again, some of you may remember, it's 25 years ago now, I was the first selectman in Brookfield for 2 terms. After I finished that, I went on to Homeland Security, as you said, and after I retired from there about a year and a half ago, I decided I wanted to keep busy, so I ran for this job, and I'm busy, but I like being busy. Committees I'm on, just so you know: aging, appropriations, and education. So on one hand, I've got the seniors, the other hand, I've got the juniors, and I got in the middle all the money. So it all comes through. It all comes through us. And I have to say, you're all fortunate to have my colleagues here representing you here in town. There's such a wealth of experience, and I'm fortunate to be able to work with the 2 of them. And together we're doing great things for our districts. So the types of things I've been looking at, I got to go through a couple of these. Tax breaks for people. We pay too much tax, especially seniors, veterans. We got to meet the needs of our students. We've spoken to superintendents in all the towns. There's transportation issues, some environmental, affordability in general, energy and the costs of it, healthcare, the types of education. Things are a little different today. And if you look at any of the news media, you can see how things have changed since I was in high school anyway. So what do you have after you finish with high school? You could go to college, you could go to the military, or you can get some other career. And the other career is where we have to work hard to teach people how to make really good careers and not go to one of the other 2 options. I've had comments from hundreds of people in my district in just this first year. But we need to hear from you to see what you think the important issues are, at least important to you. It's the only way we can address them. Okay, so you'll find information at the front table there with all the internet information on it, email addresses, phone numbers. You can reach us, and that's the best way to contact us, because someone in Hartford will see that email, it's recorded, and they make sure that we see it and take action on it. Okay, so I'm going to give you all the opportunity to speak. I'm going to pass the mic over to the senator.
I'll put it up there.
Okay.
For those that are, and I would encourage people to come up and speak and ask the questions, share your name and the towns that you're from, and we'll do our best to answer your question. Come on up.
Thank you guys for doing this. It's always awesome to have these kinds of opportunities. They don't happen often enough. So I wanted to take advantage of your time on a Sunday to thank you for saying everything you just said. It's really encouraging and enlightening to know these important issues that make you tick and that you guys focus your professional time on. I want to talk about something that kind of is related to everything that you guys do or just mentioned, but that none of what you guys can do if we don't do something about. And that is stabilizing and reversing the trend that's happening development-wise with regard to our natural resources. I think you guys would probably all agree that what happens to our local waterways and drinking water and other natural resources should ultimately be our responsibility at the local level. Nobody's going to defend it as well as we will. But here in Newtown, us residents have had to wage war against a pretty steady onslaught of obscene and irresponsible development proposals on both public and privately owned property recently, in the last several months to a year. groups, individuals have really had to work hard to force, or to spend money to bring experts into some of these proposals, these development applications we've seen, to educate town commissions, town elected officials, and town departments on the significant threats that these proposals pose, or can pose to our natural resources, our budgets, and our quality of life here. In one such case, the town-owned meadow at 6 Commerce Road was, and is still being marketed for inappropriate development because of a deed restriction that the state placed on that land, and the deed restriction mandates that it be used for quote-unquote economic development. Many of the residents that I know hope to work with our local leaders to update what we consider a low threshold, a set of low threshold building and development regulations that developers are aware of, and that kind of invite them to come here to Newtown with their crazy proposals. We'd like to replace or update those thresholds with what's called a more modern, low-impact development approach, a set of regulations that offer greater protections to our natural resources and that take the changing climate into consideration. My questions for you are, A, are you willing to help get the deed restriction on the meadow at 6 Commerce Road removed to make it easier for the taxpayers who own it to work with the town to preserve and protect the Class 1 trout river that's nearby, the drinking water source for over half the town that is underneath this property? And number 2, how can you help Newtown become a town that other communities point to as a role model when it comes to modern, responsible building and development regulations? Thank you.
And I'm sorry, your name and?
Oh, sorry, I'm Dave Eckert,
Okay.
from Newtown.
Thanks, David. No, you can leave the microphone. You can still hear us, right? Mitch, Marty?
Yeah,
What?
they can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Who wants to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Dave, thank you very much. As you know, as we all know, there's been a lot of controversial, proposals for development in places around town. It's a difficult balance between a property owner's rights and what we call the community character. And the way that we have been fighting it, because these are all local zoning issues, and thank you for the suggestion about understanding the deed restriction on 6 Commerce. We will understand that very shortly. But the approach that we have taken, and I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I think I do. Zoning, much like education, should be driven at the local level without state interference. And what we have been doing for about the last 6 years has been successfully resisting the zoning of local projects to come under state purview and not local purview. So what you're seeing is every one of these fights is a manifestation of us having the local authority to see and be heard and to argue. And I know that every single one of these fights is an emotional, exhausting process. But you can take a look and see that the community loudly spoke about concerns with the trucking terminal that was proposed on a piece of pretty pristine wetland. And eventually, that proposal was withdrawn. More recently, at the Catherine Violet Hubbard Sanctuary, which is special to all of us, 6 Commerce is right next door, and there was a proposal for something that looked like a bunch of shipping containers stacked together called senior housing that was 4 stories high and just about ugly. But inappropriate in its density also for that particular area. It's not a residential street, it's not a through street, and it's next to an animal sanctuary, for gosh sake. Notice that that was withdrawn. So the efforts that you are making, the efforts that are being made by other folks in town are textbook exercising our local rights. At the same time, in the background, through various organizations that are involved in trying to pack us as a state with high-density housing to solve a very real problem, which is a housing shortage and a complete and utter unaffordably expensive housing market, particularly for renters. You know, that comes organically to us, you know, from bureaucrats that have good intentions. They want to make it more affordable to be here. Not without local control, because last I checked, everybody that's in this room lives in Newtown because this is where they want to live. And part of where we want to live is the character of our town and the way we interact with one another and the way the things we love about Newtown are Newtown. So I don't want anybody at the state level to ever tell us what's being put where, and take your right to have these fights away. So it's an ongoing conversation, but in the background, we don't talk about it all that much. We're fighting it every session because the state doesn't want to move at the pace that our local towns need it to move, which is slowly and in consideration of the people who are property owners, business owners, and, you know, users of the passive recreation that we have in a place that's Newtown. So, did that come close to answering the question?
Continues to be a work in progress.
We can talk about it more. So, anything you guys want to add?
I could
It's an
follow,
important
and thank you first and foremost. And you know, one of the tremendous beauties in Newtown is its natural resources. I remember when I first started representing it 8+ years ago, I learned that the Newtown Forest Association is one of the largest and oldest open space preservation in the state. And having the opportunity to be able to walk Castle Hill and the plantings, as well as the various roads and the sanctuaries, it is important to maintain that balance between economic development, what people deemed as progress, to preserving our open space and waterways, because they're critical. Because ultimately, we can't create them anymore. And it's an important role for us as the believer that the environment is critical in the light of climate change, but also kind of maintaining that balance. But I also understand that there's tremendous economic impact in being able to make use of the land, to be able to create revenue for our tax base and not put burden on many of the residents that when we focus in on affordability. So that's the kind of betwixt that we're in, right? But I think ultimately, one of the first things we want to look at is legislatively what the de-restriction looks at. If it's purely for economic development, it is that kind of a restriction, and you can only look that way. So I will say this, I would be more than happy to request a conveyance language change with further consult with attorneys. And I will say this as well, and staying true to what Representative Bolinsky said, is we want to work with the guidance of our local governance. So we have 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, we have Planning and Zoning, we have the community to be able to offer some guidance. I think it's important for us, as your representatives, that we get some kind of guidance to look at if we wanted to change that language of de-restriction, what are some of the acceptable use in regards to passive use or constructive use, or housing considerations that is not at the size and capacity and scope that was purported by the New York developer? Because there can be compromise, but for us, we are happy to be your advocates up in Hartford, because it is a language change that's needed, and a conveyance language in the General Assembly's Government Administration and Elections Committee, just to share that with you so you can be aware when you follow and engage. It goes to the GA committee, and it would be a conveyance. But first and foremost, I think it's important for me, and I hope for our colleagues, to get the guidance from our Board of Selectmen and Planning and Zoning to consider other ways that can balance the need with preservation, conservation, but also economic initiatives, because we have to be sensitive and respectful of the tax base and the affordability factor. I hope that helps, but I think it's important that we get the guidance from you to do what we need to do for you. So I'm happy to look at that language change, but maybe we can be more flexible when we make that change, instead of just purely economic development.
I appreciate that, and I agree, we need to figure out ourselves what we can live with there in a way that benefits the whole town.
And we do have time. February 7th is the start of session. There's a deliberation, and I can share with you the timetable in the years that I've been there. The reality is conveyance is the last bill that goes on, and it is a mini aircraft carrier in which there's about 30, 40 conveyances in one bill. But it takes a lot of input. It takes a lot of discretion. And as Mitch said, and we have Marty as a former first selectman, he understands that kind of that push and pull in regards to economic development, as well as creating a stable tax base without creating traffic density, congestion, and input on the infrastructure and the tax base of our residents. So I think we're really lucky to have that input, but most important of all, I would subscribe that I want to get input from our town leaders.
Thank you. One last note on that. It's important for everyone in this room to understand, nobody likes to talk about it, but just with that property in mind, one of the reasons it's important to do this work is Deep River, Deep Brook, I'm sorry, not only is it
Deep Brook, yes.
trout habitat, which means trout can live and repopulate there, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but whatever happens to trout happens to humans ultimately, so it's important that they can continue to live. But Deep Brook has an unacceptable level of E. coli in it that nobody wants to talk about, where the DEP basically says it's beyond the level where we can use that brook for recreation. I also learned this week that Deep Brook feeds into the Putatuck, and the Putatuck is the single biggest source of pollution into Lake Zor, Newtown. Newtown is polluting Lake Zor more than any other area. So that's why it's really sensitive and really important to get this right. It's not just
Great.
the animal sanctuary.
I want to let Marty offer that, but we want to follow up with you and get more information. It will not be the last of the conversation, but this is why we want to have people come up and offer. It can be any point of conversation, please, and that's part of our role in being able to listen to you. So we'll follow up. Marty?
So quickly, again, thank you for bringing the issue to our attention. Again, as I've said, I've worked at the local level in government and now at the state level. And I know each has its own roles and responsibilities. There's only so much we can do. There's only so much the towns can do. We need to work with the town government to try to resolve issues like this. And all three of us are more than happy to do that. You made a comment, too, where you said you want to make Newtown, so many words, a place that people look to. Well, I think they already do, from talking to people in different parts of the state. They look here and they will say, what are they doing in Newtown? Okay, so you're noted in the state of Connecticut, and we're here to help you in any way that we can make the town a better place to live and work in. So,
And Dave,
Thank you.
Dave, what you've done today is you've rattled the cage on things that we've worked on in the past. I was on the Newtown Economic Development Commission 15 years ago when we got the conveyance from the Department of Agriculture, and I did not know that we had a conveyance language problem at that time, and I didn't know until just now. That can be fixed. The other conveyance that is in play when we talk about that parcel, I was involved in, which was the conveyance of the land that the sanctuary is on. As a freshman, that was the last thing I did in 2013, was that conveyance, along with a team of other people, but it's time to tie a little bow around all of it and make it right.
Thank you. Please, other people, please feel free to come on up.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Hello, my name's Pete Seppi. I'm a farmer here in Newtown. I'm a retired ag teacher. Thank you for your support of agricultural education, all of education, as a matter of fact. But after 28 years, I decided to practice what I preached. All right?
That's
I'm
great.
a farmer.
There you go.
And a sustainable farmer. I've lived in Newtown for 30 years. My wife and I own Seppi Farm and on Toddy Hill Road in Sandy Hook. And I'm the current president of Fairfield County Farm Bureau. And there are 189 members of Fairfield County Farm Bureau. And I'm here today to ask you, as far as several issues that go, that are coming along anyway, one of which is a bill that did not pass last year, but is going to be raised again this year.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 298.
Thank you.
There are people that I get calls on a regular basis from people who want to produce livestock, right? And there is a processing capacity problem because in order for me to process and promote American land, I have to undergo USDA inspection on the product twice. All right? Excuse me for the language, but it's once on the kill floor and once on the processing. All right? So that when you receive a package of meat from my farm, okay, it's got an emblem on it, it's USDA inspected. All right? But it's been inspected twice. All right? And however, if I sell a carcass to a local butcher, it only has to be inspected once, but he has been inspected by the Department of Public Health. What we're hoping is that we can move this along a little bit better so that it could be, the problem is the shortage of USDA processing capacity. There are people who want to farm, okay, throughout Newtown and all of Fairfield County and the rest of Connecticut, but their hands are tied, all right, because what do you do with the livestock if you're raising livestock, all right, if you can't get into a butcher? And USDA doesn't have the processing capacity on the cutting table. There aren't enough butchers. However, the USDA butcher will tell me there are plenty of butchers that just,
Yes.
there are plenty of butchers out there that are not USDA inspected butchers. So as a farmer, my hands are tied.
Yeah. It never got
So
called
what
the house or the
I can
city.
actually do, under the current regulations, I have to undergo 2 USDA inspections, but the local butcher down the road only has to undergo 1. So we need your help, please, all right? If we can move this along a little bit, be grateful.
Thank you, Pete. You know what, this was one of the bills that, it never got called in the Senate. It made it out of environment with very little opposition, but the opposition came from perhaps the most environmentally activist individual that I know. And I might have made a mistake of asking him what this bill was all about, but needless to say, it did not get called. It needs to be understood because if it's worth advocating for, we will advocate for it.
I just want to add to that, Mitch said environmental advocate. I want to just kind of maybe qualify that a little bit. It was a very a pro-animal protection advocacy. It didn't
Thank you.
relate
Thank you.
as much as to the environment. And they're, you know, the animal rights group is very powerful. They're very passionate. But I also have spoken to farmers, and I did speak with Senator Kissel, who originally proposed it. He's a senator representing the Enfield, the North Central area. It had great support because it allowed our farmers to be able to produce products that consumers want to buy, and that is less variant on weather and seasonality. It gives you another revenue stream that you could supplement. The understanding I have about this bill is there's no extra money. There are federal funds that are available to support this endeavor, but because we have not, as a state level, enacted the allowance, we're not even able to get you into the game for federal money. So I'm familiar with the bill. And by the way, this is excellent background information. It all came flushing back to me. I can make that commitment. It may not be for everybody, but I'm more than happy to speak to Senator Kissel and speak to the chairs and the ranking of the environment.
Absolutely.
The ranking environment, legislator in the environment, which this bill came through, is Senator Harding, who represents Brookfield and parallels right next to me. And then you have Representative Callahan, who also is Brookfield, Candlewood Lakes area. So after this today, I will share with you who the players are, and you can send that wonderful package you just shared with me to those very same people, or you can send it electronically to me, and I'll make sure to have that bill be raised by a colleague.
You said that it's
Right.
coming back this year. Who's introducing it again? Do you know?
When I reached out to Senator Kissel's office, they said they would be raising it again.
Correct.
Who would be raising it, I don't know.
All right, well, we will look into this, and typically when we
Oh,
do
yeah.
one
Just
of these
one-
things
one
as
piece.
constituent mission work, we have a tendency to co-sponsor the bills and then also help push them.
Please, yeah.
Marty?
Yes,
Thank you.
so I'm not on environment. Steve Harding,
Thank you.
who's in my town, is. I'll talk to him about it. And our other colleague, Cindy Harrison, who has her own farm in Southbury. And as far as I know, she has livestock. So I'll talk to one of the real deal players then.
Yeah, and we're happy to help. And obviously, there's the nuance in regards to the animal rights aspect that you can, but also to share with our audience here is, because this is a short session, there are no bills that are raised under individuals' names. Bills can only be raised under the rules to be budget-related unless the chairperson and the ranking, which is the Republican leader, raises it as a committee bill. So unlike this bill, which was raised by Senator Kissel, the bill that'll be raised must meet the approval of the committee leadership. So every bill this year will be a committee bill,
Yes,
unless you're the speaker or the governor.
right.
Like 5001, that's a good one, that's a good one. But thank you very much for sharing that feedback, and also to kind of acknowledge the Fairfield County Farmers Bureau is one of the largest and one of the most active advocates in representing Easton. There's tremendous amount of farms, but also we have farms down in Fairfield and Westport area. It really is a labor of love, so, and thank you for teaching as well.
There are a lot of people that call me that want to raise livestock, but then how they go through the hoops to get them processed, fabricated.
And
And
it's-
there are plenty of butchers, it's just not USDA, especially on this side of the state. On this side of the state, we're really handicapped.
I know the regulations are well-intended to ensure safety, quality standards, and also professional experts in being able to do this in a proper way. But I also know many of the farmers here take great pride in doing it the right way, because it is a labor of love, because you're certainly not making tremendous amount of money in doing this. So another bill that was provided and shared with me by Mr. Conover of Silverman's is to be able to look at funding and scholarship grants for individuals pursuing agricultural science work. So that's another thought that is being raised as well.
And the Fairfield County Farm Bureau has a animal welfare grant.
Mhm.
Right, to benefit animal welfare in Fairfield County. And this grant is on behalf of Julia Wasserman,
Mhm.
okay, two $5,000 grants. And the applications are Fairfield County Farm Bureau. Each year, $5,000, two $5,000 grants. You know, anyone who has a project who wants to support animal welfare in Fairfield County, either reach out to me or Farm Bureau's website.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very
And
much.
I would be remiss if I didn't leave with you the legislative priorities for Farm Bureau.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
If I may, I just wanted to, the individual that was right in front of you that was coming up, glasses, were you going to come up? Yeah. Yes. Please, come on up. Pete, if you could. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
My name is Richard Warren, W-A-R-E-K. I live in Sandy Hook.
Rich Warren.
First, I want to comment on this, go back. Commerce Park is a big deal in this town. I think maybe a little bigger than our town leaders understand.
Microphone, microphone.
They can't
I
hear you.
think it's a bigger
There you go.
deal than our town leaders understand. I just want to comment, two speakers ago. My nervousness.
Don't be nervous.
It's not about water. It's not about trout. It's not about zoning. It's not about industrial production or industrial development. When there's a voice that says, no to private, she's speaking for Violet. And that
Microphone.
is
Thank you.
spiritual.
Yes.
It transcends regulations. Projects should never be approved. Simple. Her voice carries. That's my opinion. Anyway. I have a question for Mitch, a question for Tony.
We're going to pull the microphone closer to you.
Question for both. On the area of education, vouchers seem to be quite a Republican position. In our state, because of income, probably a little less, except the big cities. What's the flavor in the committee about vouchers and Republican money?
On the Education Committee, the subject of vouchers is contentious at best. And we are approaching it knowing that there's fundamental majority opposition to the voucher system. We're approaching it as a need for school choice, specialty schools, technical schools, ag schools, things like that. We have had some pretty aggressive school choice initiatives in the past 3 years, all of which didn't quite make it to the prime time. So I believe in school choice. I think that it's a fundamental right to direct your education toward an interest, but Connecticut is not a state where that is the prevailing attitude.
I can offer this. Education vouchers, I believe, when applied effectively, is important to afford school choice. And I think it has been underutilized because there aren't the appropriate choices offered to parents in making that decision. I have had strong interest in pursuing vouchers and tax credits for giving parents the choice to pursue opportunities that they believe best inspires and motivates. We talked about workforce and education. It's consistent with my approach that every child from every community deserves an opportunity to aspire and to be able to imbue themselves with a love of learning and developing education skills. We don't talk enough about parochial programs. We don't talk enough about vocational, coding, non-traditional. So to me, if we can be able to supplement and be able to allow choice and allow parents and each child to go into an area where they love learning. One great example that it's been a success in our state is these after-school programs or joint programs, the agricultural program, or ECS down in Trumbull, which looks at creative arts. You know, I had the incredible opportunity to visit these schools, the Agua School in Bridgeport, and I spoke to the principal. To every school, I said, what's your attendance issue? Do you have truancy issues?
They don't have one.
And you know what the principal of all those schools says? No, our kids love being here.
Yep.
They love to do and learn and explore what they love doing. So why are we not being able to create that avenue? So when you ask the question of vouchers, it goes right into being able to create the best environment that allows, maybe that is money best applied than the continual increases in building up, you know, the substructure of so many of our structures in education. So I'm fully in support of putting the money to inspire kids to learn.
Just the last thing I'll add is I didn't hear it so much in Newtown this year, but nearby in Danbury,
Yes.
a lot of people complaining they wanted charter schools.
Right.
Okay, so what we're talking about here are alternatives to traditional schools. And they have a million different reasons why they want something other than what's already out there. But in any event, we thought we were set up to go to get them a charter school, and then it was shot down at the end. They had all the permits that they needed in place. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it didn't go through. We're going to keep pushing for it, but I agree. We need to offer alternatives to parents and families. However we do it, whether it's giving them vouchers, which again hasn't been overly popular, or charter schools, which is a little more popular as an
I'm
alternative.
encouraged by what I hear. Second question is, you mentioned on the insurance and health insurance. I have similar background, I have 2 careers, one of them in that area. There's a saying that they say about Connecticut. Connecticut is the welfare state when it comes to Medicare. Our limits for Medicaid are one of the highest in the country. Why? Well, they take 125% of the income level. We have a high income level. It opens the door. That door is so wide that it costs us a lot. Other states have asset limits to qualify. It keeps the numbers down. You can't own certain assets or a dollar value to be qualified for Medicare. Medicaid, rather. Why aren't we looking at that in our state?
I think
Thank you.
there is a important access to healthcare that I think is critical. I truly do believe that healthcare is important for everyone to access, particularly and most importantly preventive care. But you're absolutely right in regards to our guidelines and our thresholds. I think the other important factor is it's a federal program that gives us allocation of money and then the state administers it. But what's fascinating about it is the fact that the state Medicare governance is not truly as transparent as it should be, in my opinion. We do not have a lot of say as legislators in that guideline and in that a threshold limit requirement. The administration sets those standards.
But
So,
the state can impose asset limits. For example, New Jersey has an asset limit.
and
And we actively eliminated the asset test.
But the asset test is a way to keep people at high asset levels with moderate to low income by our standards of 125% of the poverty level from being in Medicaid, which is a very expensive program for the state of Connecticut.
so Rich, let me do this.
It keeps expanding.
Let me follow up with you. We'll have that conversation. We're talking about some insurance cost containment issues. But I want to be careful and balance that there may be people with, quote, asset rich, but cash poor.
Yes.
It is truly important to understand, when I talk about affordability, it means different things for different people. So we have to be very careful when we make these kind of threshold changes, because we're not sure. And I think what you're kind of saying in the underline, there are people taking advantage of the system. And what I want to be careful is, if we're going to make policy changes or recommend the administration make these kind of changes, that we have to be very, very careful that we're not making a blanket assessment and put people at risk of their health. But ultimately, I think it's an area that we can explore, and it's an area that we have to talk to the administration. The administration, through their department, sets the thresholds. So, but it is a very, very good point. And you know, look, I'm also hearing from different aspects that wasn't discussed about healthcare. So many of our seniors that are able to afford non-insurance assisted living facilities. I have been hearing, and all across Lower Fairfield County, that we are looking at potentially 30+% rate increases. And the problem is, it's not insurance, it's fee-for-service. It is a financial ability to pay for that, and you get tremendous care. And it's a private business interaction, right? But a 30% increase is an astronomical increase. So we're gonna try to get some information, but it's an affordability. And we need to create that kind of better understanding. And so when I talk about affordability and healthcare costs, it is a gigantic system. So you being in the business, quote unquote, you know how complicated it is.
I appreciate that. My long-term care insurance is not considered life insurance, it's health insurance.
Right.
So you buy a policy 20 years ago, it still goes up.
It's been, you're absolutely right.
You think you're signing a contract, but it's not really a contract when it comes to cost.
And we'd be happy to follow up with you on your long-term care
Those are all
insurance programs.
active.
It's astronomical.
So thank you.
I have legislation.
Thank you for
on-
being here.
on-
We'll
on
we'll
both
follow
of
up,
those.
okay? Please.
Good afternoon. My name is David Emberling. I'm the Citizen Climate Lobby. We advocate for solutions to the climate process. I want to find out if you're aware of the Climate Protection Act of 2024, which is in the process of getting introduced. I don't think it has a bill number yet. I think they're still working on it.
At the federal level?
At the state level, and it's being introduced in the House, I believe. I could be wrong about that part.
You don't have a bill number like Mitch just told us?
It doesn't have one yet, unfortunately. To the best of my knowledge, it probably will soon.
What will the bill encompass, if you could share?
So it's a big bill. It's got a lot of provisions that there won't be time to go through all of them. Some of the major ones, you mentioned, I know earlier, the importance of job training and vocational skills. So one of them is support for job training specifically for climate-related things. So solar energy, wind energy, batteries, electrical infrastructure, all that kind of thing. Solar energy support to increase solar energy around the state. Support for energy efficiency programs so that people can save money on their heating and cooling costs, and ultimately, winds up usually being a good investment, but a lot of times people can't afford the money up front, so there's a program for that. And increasing the information that we have on our progress with regard to the
I think we chatted a couple of weeks ago in Bethel. Pretty much the same. Again, I'm not on the environmental committee, but I'm willing to work with them on it. I think I mentioned to you back then my undergraduate degree is in chemistry, so I like reading studies that they have on various topics pertaining to the environment and the climate. Happy to do so, and I'll be happy to sit with you anytime I go over it. I took, oh, you weren't the one that gave me the notes on the reactors, were you? There was another lady in the room, Okay. So I'll look her up and follow up on that. But anyway, let us know. We can sit down.
You're right, we don't report, and in many ways, as a legislature, we're challenged to even get the information ourselves. It would be nice to know where we are. Any way you look at things, you know, an environmentally sound and sustainable energy future is going to be part of our lives. We have not been making the investments necessary. We're taking little teeny steps. And as a result, you know, what was passed as, you know, that 2050 initiative, which also included the mandated phase out of the sale of fossil fuel powered vehicles by 2035, actually fell by the wayside in the Regulation Review Committee. It was withdrawn by the governor himself because we actually started having conversations about the state of our infrastructure, and the broad consensus from about 80% of Connecticut residents was, we're not ready for this. Can we do it some other way than by mandating? And right now that's being conversed, and there may even be a special session before we open the session on February 7th to deliberate and vote on our go-forward position in general. So it's happening, unfortunately, mostly behind closed doors.
I can only offer that I truly believe that we have an important responsibility to be able to preserve, maintain, and sustain our environment in light of climate change, in light of technological progression and density building with growing population needs. But I think it also needs to we need to understand that it cannot be all government.
Right.
It needs to be, government needs to be an important partner in the collaboration and in the improvement of these type of opportunities and a vision. But I truly believe it is so important for us to continue to educate, continue to be able to engage. I am so inspired by young people that have gotten involved, by passionate people like you who have worked really hard. And I'm going to single out a person. There's so many people. Mary Hogue, who's a dear advocate. I mean, she goes out to more places than I do, but she inspires young people to believe and be inactive. So one of the schools that I have, elementary school within the district, was just chosen as a green ribbon school. These are elementary kids that inspire adults to be able to look at composting, to look at sustainable farming, to look at practices and open space preservation, waterways. These are elementary kids that were just absolutely inspiring to adults and teachers in the community. They were recognized as a green ribbon school in the federal government. One of the few. I mean, we've heard of blue ribbon schools. This is a green ribbon school. So when I think about environmental advocacy, we can do our part, but it also has significant economic consequences because we can talk about climate change and there are arguments back and forth, but it is absolutely undeniable that it has an economic impact. Because when weather patterns are severe, farmers struggle to be able to maintain their growth and growing seasons. Coastal communities and riverbeds run the risk of economic devastation with increased flooding and coastal resiliency. So these are all important parts, but we have to educate. I think one of the biggest missing parts in the recent proposal on electric vehicle adoption is the key words of this. It's a mandate, and you must. We're in government making that push, and look, I've had an electric car for 6 years. I've had an electric car for 6 years. But you know what? You're gonna mandate people do it, and you must do it. Those don't work. So when I talk about all the policies we did, as the governor agreed, I think he missed that connection when he talked about traffic safety and consumer behavior in traffic. He says it's common sense. Well, it's common sense to not mandate these kind of policies, but to be a kind of a channel to encourage that kind of, give examples and pathways to succeed. We don't have the infrastructure commitment, we don't have the capacity issues, and ultimately, we don't have the buy-in from the consumer or the manufacturers. Those are really three important parts. One of the proposals that I reviewed over is if the governor and the majority wants to go into a special session and do it outside of a normal legislative process, one, it's disrespectful to the residents that believe in the democratic process, in my mind. And the fact that you do it weeks before the legislative session takes a formal way, it is a disrespect of our legislators that represent the people. Maybe you want to do it because 80% of the polling says they don't want this mandate. Then you want to jam it in a special session so that you think and hope that people forget about it in November.
And you can pass it.
That
without
is
public
just so
hearings.
disrespectful to the process. And I support this idea,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
So common sense, advocacy from people like you, the Forest Association, our Trouts Unlimited people, those are great examples that inspire people to believe and change their behavior and beliefs. Government mandates just don't work. That's my 3 cents, I'm sorry.
Senator Hwang, I just want to say I fully agree with you on the importance of the democratic process. I was not aware that anybody was asking for a special session.
It's in the news,
I didn't hear that.
all over the news.
Oh, okay.
But that's a
Is
little.
it for this specific bill? Because I have not heard that this bill was.
No, for the
Oh, okay.
electric cars.
Yeah, so I'm not here to advocate for that one, just so you know, I'm here.
No. It's a broad base. I mean, just an example that sometimes it gets hijacked, right?
Yes, and you know what? I met with the governor for breakfast 3 weeks ago. And I told him much what the senator just said. I've been driving hybrids since 2003. I have a plug-in. The only place I can reliably plug in right now is at home. When I go to the Capitol, I can't even plug my car in, okay? Actually, last year I paid to have a plug installed in my parking space. I had to pay for it, otherwise it was a conflict of interest where I was getting a special favoring since it was a reserved parking space. But that's just noise. We have a company in Danbury called Fuel Cells, Incorporated, Danbury, whatever. I just lost my train of thought, but we shouldn't be mandating any technology, especially when government doesn't understand that technology.
Right.
Why would we make a decision to flip the switch to an all-electric mandate when in fact there's other technologies that are currently in the pipeline being worked on showing great promise that are far more efficient and far more sustainable? So,
Can you send your bill to us so we can be?
please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Barry Shannon, a Newtown resident. First, thank you, gentlemen, Committee on Aging, for your proposals. However, I would suggest that anything about aging in place must include some sort of tax rebate, tax credit, simply because people who want to age in place are going to need things like ramps, stair lifts, changes in bathrooms, kitchens. So I hope that somewhere within that would be some sort of tax relief for these things that are necessary to age in place. Secondly, this is probably to all of you, but certainly to Senator Hwang. Newtown is, and actually Connecticut, is the poster child for how bad transportation can be. They have not yet, since the narrow bridges and they built the Merritt Parkway, they have under-designed every road they've ever constructed. In Newtown, in Stony Hill, in Hawleyville, certainly on Main Street, Route 25, Route 6 is a mess. The state's only relief is to complain about our flagpole, or I've noticed recently, any traffic light that leads to one of the 84 exits now has increased green to take length of time. Certainly right here in town, if you've all noticed, trying to turn from onto Churchill Road, that the light is now longer to wait because they're trying to move traffic away from the flagpole. We know that exit 11 was overbuilt. We ended up with too many lanes, too many sidewalks to nowhere. We know that we have nice new bridges going over the river. Unfortunately, there's still 2 lanes. So and it's also between the fact that between exit 8 and Waterbury is the only section of 84 that is still 2 lanes. You gentlemen, you don't fly to Hartford.
Right.
You don't take a bus or a train, you drive. So you know what we're talking about. What is being done by this state to relieve traffic congestion on our roads? The fact is that Super 7 was never built. 45 years ago, there were 5 designs in place to connect Super 25 in Trumbull with exit 11. None of this ever happened. So could you help me to understand what plans are in place and what you can do to facilitate moving traffic through Newtown and Bethel and Brookfield?
I'd be happy to, and thank you, thank you. Your points are very well taken. Truly, our Connecticut roads are not equipped to address the volume, the speed, and the kind of potentially distracted driving that occurs. There's just that sense of getting to somewhere, to and from in a hurry, okay? But that being said, our infrastructure is woefully outdated. You know, you mentioned the Merritt Parkway. I have to take that every day when I go up to Hartford. Here's the thing. I'm a big historical buff, and the Merritt Parkway was supposed to be a parkland. And it was supposed to be for a 1930 Studebaker wood panel station wagon, and you go out right in the middle of the parkland and have a picnic. I kid you not. That was the vision. You'd be risking your life trying to stand on the exit ramp. So our roads are woefully inadequate for the speed and the type of vehicles that we have, and the pace of life that we have. Population. Density, but I think also we need to make a infrastructure commitment. People need a little bit of history buff. It was Eisenhower, remember? And the work that's to be able to build our major highway system. But that was still very much in the 50s, and our roads have just not been able to keep up. So the Inflation Reduction Act, which was kind of a misnomer bill, did allocate tremendous amount of money for infrastructure and transportation improvements. The state of Connecticut actually has nearly $5 billion of federal funds. It's literally, I think, in our bank accounts. And it's headed up by the Revenue Commissioner, former Mayor Danbury, Mark Boughton. The system is called, for you all to, if you're curious, CT Built, B-I-L-T. that outlines a lot of the projects that are under consideration and review. Here's the problem, though. Most of these projects are not shovel-ready. We talk about money being there, and Mitch has been tremendously instrumental in being familiar with Exit 10, right? And 11, right?
Yeah.
Look how long that process took,
Quite vague.
right? So that is one part that when we talk about shovel-ready, we're really not shovel-ready. So that is an encouragement that I offer from a transportation leadership to say to all of our municipal leaders, you're not shovel-ready. Get all the documentation, get all the permitting, and get a vision of where you want to go, and then come because the money's there. Seriously. Number two, we don't have enough engineers and staff to be able to implement the projects that are on the pipeline. Take a look at CT Built. There are projects ready to go, okay? But we don't have enough engineers to implement it. That's one of the biggest challenges we have in the workforce that I've talked to the commissioner and I've talked to the governor. The reality is we've got work that needs to be done, and we are probably 30% short on labor force, okay? And I'll say the third thing that's probably in the back of everybody's mind, if you're sitting in traffic with traffic construction and these CTDOT employees are tremendously diligent and talented people, but we always wonder, right? There's 5 person working, and then there's 8 just kind of standing around, right?
I've never seen 5 working.
And I don't want it to mean the DOT staff. They all work hard because, you know, they've done a great job with the plowing in the roads. But we've created a culture that says, here's the project timeline. You know, this is going to take 18 months to 3 years, and we're going to finish it on time. And I've implored the commissioner to say, hold on, you've got a 3-year project that could be expedited to ensure all the safety standards and timeliness, because the quality of life and the economic impact of sitting in traffic. I mean, one of the beauties we had, right? We're in the middle of session on a budget vote on a Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and we need to go out, or maybe even 10 o'clock, and we need to get to a vote, and we're stuck in construction. I kid you not, right?
Right,
You can't make it up,
get home.
right?
Yeah.
The challenge is, or they do it in the middle of Friday afternoon. This is what I said to the commissioner. I know trauma, right? We can actually replace 2 bridges on the Saugatuck River in 2 weekends. It is a massive and impressive engineering feat. But we did that in 4 weekends. You're telling me it's going to take you 3 years to finish a local bridgeway? It is a sense of priority and respect for the constituency. That's my point. I said to the commissioner, who was a good guy, and Commissioner Euclid was a wonderful advocate, but I think those are the 3 things that I would offer to increasing our infrastructure improvements, which are critically needed. And mass transit. You know, I said this to the governor. I said, you want to implore mass transit, but you cut train fare, you cut train schedules, and you increase fare, and you reduce Eastern Connecticut's rail lines. Inconsistent. So I'm sorry.
We have ourselves to blame. When you mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, the Republicans did a poor job of trying to convince Johanna Hayes to vote no on that pork belly project. I get tired of driving around Connecticut and seeing signs thanking Joe Biden and Vice President Harris.
Can you come up? I don't know.
I get tired of seeing that. It's only pork that they're spending. And we should have voted that down, and we should have worked harder as Republicans and tell them, you're out of office if you vote yes for that bill. And we did a poor job here in Connecticut in our district to try to overturn her vote. And she took a bow in the newspaper for supporting it from the Connecticut environmentalists nothing to do with the environment. It has all to do with spending, raising tax on fossil fuel, raising corporate tax, eliminating research and development tax credits for business. It was a massive bill of waste. And you're seeing it right here. It's not being spent properly.
Richard, we should have you up there and we'll send that to Joanna.
Well, we did a poor job, all of us.
We did, yes, we, yes, we, look, I'm a Republican legislator, and I'm very happy to throw myself on any grenade, if we can get ourselves to the point where we don't start creating divisions amongst ourselves. I don't give a damn how we got here. I just give a damn about how we get out of it. So here's what we are doing, okay? To some degree, it starts out with you standing in a room with a bunch of people and you are listening to yourself until you can convince them to listen to you. In November, we brought the 4 senior engineering people from DOT, regional and state, to Newtown. And we sat in the council chambers and had a meeting. And in that meeting, we exhaustively, with all of the municipal officials, you know, Fred Hurley and all of our public works people, and we talked about a 3-page list of things that are stupid. Stupid. Like, we're talking about having the lights be extended to make it more inconvenient to, you know, head your vehicle to the flagpole, things like that. Well, we spoke about the fact that we've just installed these really beautiful systems of smart signals that can sense the intention of drivers with pretty decent experience. Why don't we let them free? Why don't we let them work? Because, I mean, anytime there's a backup on I-84, and by the way, I'm sorry, this is a subject about which all we can do is trade war stories. But when there's a backup on 84, it comes into town. Okay, if it happens at the Rochambeau Bridge or east of it, it funnels through the middle of Sandy Hook and it comes over our 100-year-old Silver Bridge, right? It screws up our neighborhoods. It makes it hard for people to get around and to get to the store, to get to school. It's a bitch, right? So everything flows downhill. We talked about the systems, integrating the systems. We talked about the excessive lanes on that 84 merge with the slip ramp. It's confusing as heck to have 4 lanes slide down into 2. And it makes no sense to come off of the ramps, have everything go from 3 lanes to 1 lane so it can open up to 4 lanes 50 feet later. None of that stuff makes sense. We spoke about every single one of those things, 3 pages of it. And at the time, we were in the process of getting ready to release about $2 billion back to the federal government because we didn't have enough engineers to build stuff. And I said, you want shovel ready? You want shovel ready? We have a highway that is now the Waterbury of Western Connecticut that runs right through the middle of Newtown. That's 2 lanes. And it jams up every day, 24 hours a day, for reasons that sometimes we can't explain. Every single bridge has been widened over the past 30 years to carry 3 lanes of traffic. And there are wide shoulders. And we just widened Rochambeau on top of everything. It was already wide enough for 4 lanes in each direction. I said, don't send $2 billion back to Washington, for God's sake, give us our 3rd lane. Put it in. You know it's happening. You've planned for it. For God's sake, do it. All right? We're fighting against government bureaucracy. But on your behalf, on my behalf, you gotta challenge them all the time and tell them, look, this doesn't make sense. Can we try it this way? I'm embarrassed to talk about infrastructure. Because as a state, we're terrible.
On that note, Marty, anything you want to add?
Nothing to add. I was at the meeting with the transportation people. I won't go over the issues again. Clearly, as far as transportation goes, we need some comprehensive reform for the roads that are the federal roads, the interstates, the state and local roads in the towns. There's just not enough that's been done, bridges and what have you, on and off ramps because of the accidents. We've talked about that before. So I'm going to cut it there.
Thank you.
There's too much that
Anyone
needs
else?
to be done. We need to work on it.
We scheduled it till 4:30, but you guys okay with staying a little bit to just accommodate the people?
As long
Tells
as
them it was-
people are
So please
staying,
come on
I'm
up.
here.
Yeah, I'll stay.
Hey, Domenico.
Aye.
Hi, my name is Domenica Pizzani. I live in Newtown. I have a business in New Milford. It's a small business. I just think something that needs to be addressed is the gross number of people leaving this state, and they're all your voters. I have a huge, and it seems to be ever-growing, group of parents who are homeschooling. They're pulling their kids out in droves. I have about 300 students. Almost 10% of them are homeschooled. I have students from Kent to New Fairfield, down to Ridgefield, Danbury, Newtown, Brookfield. I had a huge number of people who came up from the Stanford, Greenwich area. They have all left the state because their children are not being supported in the homeschooling arena. What is Connecticut have for homeschoolers? How are we keep these people in our state? Because we're dying. And it's scary to see what's going to happen. Watching Newtown flip was horrifying this past election, but it's because people are leaving and they don't want their kids in these school systems. What these kids are being taught is horrific. I have a teacher from New Milford who I would love for you to sit down if you want to hear what's happening in the schools. These teachers have zero support. The parents rule. The parents are the customer. The kids have no. It is out of control. The teachers can't even teach. So parents are pulling their kids out, and I think it's probably a demographic that you really need to look into, or you're going to lose your elections, because all these Republicans have left the state. They've gone to Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and all the New Yorkers are coming in as the highest bidders on their land. And we're getting close to, I know a lot of you,
Yep.
people in this room, like this close to leaving. So how are we going to keep this state from falling? I don't know.
Thank you.
That's just,
Yep.
I just want you to be
No,
aware
thank
of
you.
the
Thank you
growing
for-
number of homeschoolers,
Yeah.
people pulling their
I'll
kids
be
out so fast.
Happy to talk to the teacher also in New Milford, you mentioned?
Yeah, I'll set
Get
up a
get us the
meeting
name.
anytime.
Yeah,
Comes into work crying most of the time, leaving the school. And this is a fourth grade teacher who
Mm-hmm.
had a box cutter pulled on her, and she got in trouble for it. How dare she not see the box cutter in the kid's hand? It's horrible.
Yeah.
So I just think if you guys want to stay in your office, you need people who are going to support you when they're all leaving. So, and by the way, I'm
Understood.
totally opposed to the EV mandates.
yep.
They're not good for the environment.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you. That's, what that's called is, the painful truth, right? The grassroots stuff. We're here to fight for everybody. And, I can only speak for myself on this, but, it's more important to preserve this community than it is for me to stay in office. So, I will never stop advocating and telling you stories.
But the people who are going to preserve this community are also the people who support you, and we can't keep losing.
I understand that. We're in a majority, we're in the minority,
Minority.
and there are times when we're trying to
Is there any support for homeschooling families?
mitigate.
I know it's,
Well, it's something that is in the, is being discussed in the education committee. One of the primary reasons that began was with a mandate. When we were in the COVID situation, it became mandated that nobody had a choice about whether to be vaccinated or not. And children were taken out of schools. And despite the fact that our Constitution in the state of Connecticut guarantees a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, for every child in the school, we didn't leave any of that option in there when we did that. It was what should have been a politically disastrous move. And the folks that did that didn't have any accountability.
Dominica, we'll get your contact information. We'll stay in touch, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you for staying. You want to come up? Oh. You next? No.
Thanks, gents, for being here and taking time off, extra time here. Phil Carroll, Newtown. Two of the things that I would like to see if you could do anything about. One is with PURA. The electricity rates that we're all paying is ridiculous. I mean, just in the last 5 years, they quadrupled. And this is something that when they're, it's a cost-free business almost, because look at your electric bill. It says this is to maintain the wires, this much to maintain the poles.
Right.
Well, that's tough. That's the cost of doing business. So they're taking multi-millions of dollars for their chairman, and the rest of it just gets spread around with no cost to the company. So this is ridiculous. I know that you're in the minority, you don't have a lot of choice in this stuff, but if you can push anything on that. The other thing is the unfunded mandates to our schools, because guess who pays those increases? All of us in our taxes.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous that, I think it was last year when the state decided that we're gonna change the reading program, and you got a choice of 3, but you're gonna pick what we want. That took it away from local control. I don't like crap like that. That's why I'm nervous when I hear people say, can the state do something about our local zoning laws? I don't want the state into our local zoning laws. We have a good hometown remedy for that. And every time the state opens up something like this, they start saying, oh, well, you can put a 10-unit apartment on half an acre of land. And that's what they're looking for. We don't want that crap in Newtown. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Please, ma'am.
Please.
Thank you for all staying beyond the time. We want to hear everybody. Thank you.
My name is Mary Wilson, and I have lived in Newtown 50 years. And despite your inability to fix the traffic problems in Newtown and some other problems that have been brought forth today, I feel that we have very good representation. I think that I've always found our reps to be responsible, willing to listen, and effective. I do wish, however, that one of you would be on the Environment Committee. There hasn't been much talk about the environment today, although it's sort of peripherally. So there's 2 areas I want to address. One has to do with the first issue that Dave opened up about the development pressures that Newtown is facing these days. And I think that that's something that concerns a lot of us in terms of protecting our open space and our community character, as it were. It's losing my train of thought here.
You're doing great.
I think that the feedback that I heard from you this morning or this afternoon was that you'll be taking direction from our local officials, our first selectmen, and our planning and zoning in terms of how you could help us. I think Jeff and Pat, our planning and zoning people, will be hearing from us because there are a number of people in Newtown that have strong feelings about appropriate development. I mean, I think development's going to happen, but let's do it the right way. And let's make those choices that will sustain our environment and keep our town character the way it is for the reasons that people moved here to begin with. So the second environment as time has gone on, we've realized that it's not just the bees, it's the butterflies, it's the birds, it's the whole ecosystems that are being affected. Everything is connected to everything else. And I'm a big proponent of insects. I think, insects are the basic of the whole food web, the whole food chain that supports everything. And once that's gone, we're in trouble. And neonics are now being called the new DDT because they are so dangerous and they're just affecting whole ecosystems, not just individual species. It turns out that neonics have made U.S. agriculture 48 times more harmful to insects than in the mid-1980s. And I'm not blaming agriculture. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I think at some point we have to wake up and ask ourselves, what are we doing to the big picture? We've lost 3 billion birds in the last 50 years. Our surface waters are being contaminated. So there was a bill in the last session of the legislature. I think it was Senate Bill 963. It had wide support. We had carve-outs in there for foresters that they could use neonics to save certain tree species that were being attacked by the insects that they didn't have any other alternatives for. We already do not have the public cannot buy neonicotinoids to put on their lawn because that was taken out probably back in 2018. But we still have lawn care professionals that are using neonics for grub control. And they will continue to do that as long as they're able to because they're in the, they've done it for years. Nobody's questioning them on that. Homeowners don't ask them, what are you putting down? People wouldn't even know the names of the neonics if they were told. So it's a process that continues to go on and continues to hurt our environments. So the bill last year had wide support, except, there may be, I don't know, probably some entities but as far as the legislators themselves and the Connecticut Ag Station supported it. And for some reason, it wasn't called at the very end of the session. It never got called. So we're hoping to have another bill introduced this year, and we would appreciate your support. And I have handouts with some information about what we are hoping to
Great.
get in the bill. It has the names of the neonics and also the names of alternatives. We're not leaving people with nothing to use in their lawns. There are alternatives that they can use. So we would appreciate your support, and please approach your environment committee members and ask them to support this.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to compliment you. Thank you very much. Have you met Mary Hogue back there, Mary?
I know Mary. Is she here?
Absolutely. There you go.
She's on the pollinator panel.
Oh, trust me, and that's the difference, right? It's that kind of education. But I also want to acknowledge, as you talk about butterflies and bees, look, I've learned so much attending butterfly days and the pollinator days at the Hubbard Sanctuary. They're great, and when we talk about environmental and advocacy, you can mandate or you can teach, and you can embed that kind of passion. So for me, it's a shout out to the sanctuary because it's not just the vision and the spirituality, but it's also a constant real life engagement that, you can talk about it, you can read about it in the book, or you can just feel it and engage and have a butterfly land on your arm, and you can't substitute that. And I also learned that animals can be such a tremendous kind of comfort. And I say this all the time because, look, in what we do, we get the slings and the arrows of political divide, no doubt. But that's what we signed up for. My wife shakes her head in amazement. But you know what? This is the amazing beauty with our pets. They don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green. All they care about is the fact that you give them love, care, and affection, and they return it in kind. We can learn an awful lot. So thank you, Mary, and the other Mary, but also I do want to give a shout out for the vision and the purpose of what the sanctuary provides. So anybody else want to add to that?
Mary Mary has taught me so much. She is always there and educating me, and she's kind and she's gentle and she's very, very soft-spoken, but at the same time, the work that is done with pollinators and the environmental work that she does. We had a pesticide issue last year where Deep was spraying some fields. Mary's a warrior that's always in there, and I have to say thank you. Mary, as you know, I've been co-sponsoring the Neonic bill as long as you've been talking with me about it, and I actually do understand it very, very well. I will co-sponsor it again this year. I thought we were passing it last year, and we didn't get there. We will get there.
Let us close. Go ahead. Come on up. She was the first one here and sat in the front row, the brave, wonderful person. We'll close out with this last speaker.
I just want to, since you brought up the animal sanctuary again, it's a very special place.
It is.
It's become just an epicenter of education and a place where we can go and just really be with ourselves, be with our spirituality, whatever that may be. But getting back to what you were saying about changing the language, I think it's so important that that parcel that is right next to the animal sanctuary be something that the people of this town have a say in. If it has to be developed, soft development, something that can go in arm with the animal sanctuary, or leaving it open space would be wonderful. I did hear that Jeff is going back to the table with those developers. I don't know if that's totally true or a rumor, but I just, having sat in those meetings with the developers of that particular project, they do not get it. This is our heart. There's many places, I'm not anti-development at all. There are many places in this town that can be developed that are not as sensitive and dear to our heart and an important aspect of the animal sanctuary. I mean, when that guy came up and said the spiritual part, yes, we all got teary-eyed because it's in our heart. And this is about way more than money. The money that would possibly come in from this would not lower our taxes. It would create more burden on our infrastructure, on our resources, on our emergency resources. So I just want to, again, just really from the bottom of my heart, this is so important to us. So whatever you can do, and however, if you can guide us on this, we'd just be so appreciative. The other question I have, and I never knew who to ask this to, because I've been going to so many of these meetings, and I run my own business, I have a busy life. It's so hard to get there at 7:30 at night, as I'm sure you all know. And in our town in particular, they can post the agenda and the schedules up to like 5 minutes before the meeting. And we don't have, how do you plan for this? I want to be present. I want to be part of the legislative process. And it's really difficult, just like in our town, to make a plan. Is that something that is like in every town, or?
As I understood town government, and I could be corrected by the people that serve, there is notice onto the website. And
Yes.
there are scheduled, you actually will know when the council's meeting. It's regularly scheduled. The Board of Selectmen, it's.
Have to be published 24 hours ahead of time. You can sign up for news announcements where every time an
Yeah.
agenda is posted, you'll get an email.
That's where I saw your little clip.
Okay.
I don't know if that was.
We can try to work with the town to get that information, and so I think it's a perfect segue for me. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you all for being part of this process. I know we're up here, but the fact that we have town leaders and people who serve and represent us, and many of them in a volunteer capacity because of their love of this community. You don't get enough acknowledgement, you don't get enough, appreciation. But I want for me, and I'm sure for all of us, we appreciate all that you do in making Newtown and Sandy Hook unique. And this crowd and this active participation is so important for us to hear. I've got notes here on some of the issues we're gonna raise. We put out issues on major public acts and major issues, but we're also trying to save paper, so we can give you the link to those sites to get the information, and we'll keep you updated. But I just want to take a moment for me, but I want my other colleagues to offer that. But I just wanted to thank all of you for sitting and offering your viewpoint and being part of the process, which is so important.
I exist for you. So if you don't know how to reach me, you just need to ask, because what is on your mind is important to me, and it is on my mind. And in this room, you can update our approaches. You can also teach us things that we didn't know, like revelation that we've got bad language in a conveyance bill from 15 years ago, and nobody's done a damn thing about it. To me, that is easy, okay? So please, the door is always open, the phone is always on. We have little baseball cards at the entrance with our contact information. I think probably half of the people in this room have my cell phone number and my personal emails as well. If you need to talk to somebody, you should be there telling me you need to talk to me. Please, for goodness sake, I exist for you. So please, bring us your great ideas and criticize. Never be quiet about what you need, please.
Marty?
Yep, so again, thanks for inviting us. Again, we're your representatives. We represent you in Hartford, but we need to know the issues that are most important to you. So the best way to do that, as we said, pick up some of the information at the front desk here, get a hold of us, make sure we have a way to get back to you. Sometimes people will just send an email. I may have your email address but no phone number. It's quicker for me to call you on the phone.
Put your phone
Or any of us, yeah. So let us know how we can reach you. And we're going to do what we can. You know, up in Hartford, we'll be fighting for you. So thank you.
Thank you all.
For your input.
And if I may, just for a little bit of a pitch, this Wednesday night at the community center here, the Hearts of Hope and the American Legion are doing Valentine heart paintings to give to our troops. If you can spare an hour, come on down. We've done it as legislators and as community advocates. We've seen some of our military veterans. I will tell you, it is so wonderful to give back and truly acknowledge the great work of our military veterans. So it's Wednesday, 6 to 8 o'clock, here at the Newtown Community Center, Hearts and Hope and the American Legion. Give an hour, give 15 minutes. If you paint better than I can, you may do it in 5 and 10. But truly, if you could spare a moment, please come and give a heart.
Thank you. Thanks.